Brought to you by Penguin.
Arnhem's Last Para by John Humphreys and Stuart TOOTAL. Read by Peter Noble.
For Brenda, who was in my heart when I flew to Arnhem, and forever. Author's note. I knew that I was going to be late for my last appointment with John Humphreys. My train to London had been cancelled due to industrial action. The one behind it, which had standing room only, was running an hour and a half behind schedule. Packed among my fellow passengers amid an air of collective frustration, I thought of the train journeys John had made, crammed in overcrowded cattle trucks that took him into captivity, which were strewn with human feces, secured with barbed wire, and locked tight by armed guards. I wondered what John would have made of the strike action by people paid 5 times the salary of a modern British private soldier. I suspected he would have forgiven my lateness and made the comment, accompanied by his infectious smile, that at least Mussolini had made the trains run on time. Although I could only guess, as the work to rule on the rail network had made me late for John's funeral. John passed away as a gentleman pensioner in the Royal Hospital, Chelsea, on the 17th of March 2024, 3 months after celebrating his 102nd birthday, making him one of the very last of what has been described as the greatest generation, referring to the 8 million men and women who served in the British and Commonwealth armed forces during the Second World War. The term acknowledges the sacrifice they made to defeat the forces of evil that threatened the freedom of the Western world. However, while over 750,000 made the ultimate sacrifice by laying down their lives, and hundreds of thousands more were wounded or captured, it was the minority of that demographic who had volunteered to fight, who saw action on the front line and did so on a near-continuous basis, serving in more than one theatre of operation during 6 years of conflict. Although only a 17-year-old at the outbreak of hostilities, John was a regular soldier. He already had 3 years' service under his belt, which marked him out for a cushy role as an NCO instructor, where he could stay safe at home, training others to go to war. Instead, he deliberately got himself busted back to the rank of private so that he could be sent to a front-line unit. He went on to fight in North Africa for 18 months and had attained acting rank as a sergeant before he was wounded and captured at Tobruk. For many who fought with the desert rats of the 8th Army, that would have been enough. However, John made repeated attempts to escape from captivity in order to get back into the war, but had to spend 12 months as a POW in Italy before he was eventually successful. After learning to speak fluent Italian, he escaped by masquerading as an Italian guard, and then walked half the length of enemy-occupied Italy to reach the safety of his own lines. On returning to the UK, despite losing his rank as a sergeant and having his pay cut in half, he turned down the opportunity to become an officer. Fearing the months of officer training would mean that he would miss out on the opportunity to take part in the impending Allied invasion of Northwest Europe, he defied the instructions of his chain of command and volunteered for parachute training to join the airborne forces. Having experienced the brutality of combat once, few soldiers willingly rush back to the sound of the guns. However, John's burning desire to get back into action resulted in his becoming the last surviving veteran of a battalion group of paratroopers who jumped into Arnhem in September 1944 and managed to fight their way to the infamous bridge spanning the Lower Rhine, which they held for 4 days before they were overwhelmed by superior enemy forces. What makes John all the more remarkable is that when they ran out of ammunition and his officers told him to surrender, he chose to escape as the building they were defending burnt and collapsed around them. Although if...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?